Finnish semi-natural landscapes. National inventories. In 1991 to 98, national inventories of valuable semi-natural landscapes were made in Finland. The results of these inventories were published in books between 1996 and 2001, and they are the basis for the management of farmers' semi-natural landscapes. The inventory work was continued a little bit after that as well, and there are now some new areas that have been made inventories with again in the 2020s. Only 53% of the inventorized areas are maintained regularly. So each county has an own book that you can find then in the libraries where the invented areas are described, and this is the basis for when you are applying for the agriculture environmental subsidies for management of these areas. You can refer to that they were in these books, a part of this book. Have decreased a lot in Finland by 90% over the past 50 years. You can see here for the statistics that the amount of fields have gone up and the amount of meadows have gone down. So what happened was that meadows were turned into fields. In 1950s, there were more than 280,000 hectares of meadows, and in 1990s there was only about 4,000 valuable areas and 19,000 hectares of meadows and forest pastures left. And only half of those areas were managed in some way or had kept their original plant covers. Then there are more than 40,000 hectares of overgrown areas that, of course, could be restored. The composition of natural grasslands today, you can see that most we have forest pastures and bog meadows, as well as fresh meadows, and also more areas. And then there are a lot of these other smaller areas with smaller amount of hectares. Find the hectare amount of these different types of areas, and for comparison I have been putting here now the Estonian areas, and as you can see there are about the same amount of forest pastures in Estonia and Finland, but then in Estonia they have really a lot of seaside meadows and flooded meadows as well as alvar meadows. So in the end, even if Finland is 8 times larger than Estonia, Estonia have much more of semi-natural grasslands. Grasslands are very important as habitat for many species. There are more than 2,000 endangered varieties are 31%. That's like 707 of those that grows in these traditional landscapes. And 74 of Finland's 114 butterflies live in open agricultural landscape. And of all these species, 22% are endangered in the Finland's traditional grassland, semi-natural grasslands. Very few of the semi-natural grasslands left in Finland. There are many actors, and among those we can mention the farmers, especially those who are getting environmental support for the management of these areas. We have Metsähallitus, the forest board, which have a lot of nature protected areas that they manage, and they are making then these renting agreements with farmers to manage the areas. Rural Women Advisory Organization have been having a lot of projects on semi-natural grasslands. Then we have cultural associations, Landscapes Association Finland. They deal a lot with management of these areas. And also the Finnish Association for Nature Conservation have had actions on semi-natural grasslands. Vr, which is the railway in Finland, they have had projects managing a lot of different traditional areas. And also the Finnish Transport Infrastructure Agency have been involved in it as the village associations. 20 years ago, there was a lot of village associations who were managing semi-natural grasslands. The Finnish Sitseva organization Maatiainen, they are annually choosing the semi-natural grassland of the year. And then the Finnish Heritage Agency also have the interests in the semi-natural grasslands because in many of them there are archaeological findings. Is to have 60,000 of traditional landscapes to be managed, which is 40,000 hectares more than was inventorized in 1990s. 1,000 semi-natural grasslands received support. It was in a total 40,000 hectares. And there was also included some other areas, also some areas owned by the state. But now many of those that was in that inventory in 1990s, they have already been destroyed, about 7%, so 260 of them. And so in the total, 4% have already disappeared. It's more than 670 hectares. Either somebody have been building in them or they have been destroyed, for example, with some water constructions or cleared for fields, or they have been reforested. It's also difficult to find statistics about these areas. So only WWF, World Wildlife Foundation, have a statistic that 20,560 hectares of these semi-natural landscapes were managed from 2014 onwards. Landscapes are largely managed through agriculture environmental subsidies, and the support is paid as regional support, and the support period is 5 years, and it's being paid for these semi-natural grasslands and biotopes. It's paid for management of natural areas and verges, roadsides, protection zones between fields and roads or water bodies, and also for forest islands in the fields. And also a registered association can apply for support. So the amount of those applying for the subsidies have been changing, and the amount of money paid out per hectare, it has also been changing. And now there is a project called Häme project, and if you want to again start to manage such areas with, for example, grazing or moving, then you can get support from the Häme project. Has made an interview with farmers and their opinions about these EU supports on these semi-natural grasslands, and farmers say it's too much work compared to what you get for taking care of the area, so how much support you get. And there is also a great risk to receive a sanction if the inspector disagrees with how the area has been managed. And there is a ban on supplementary feeding in the area, and that's an obstacle because many of the Finnish semi-natural grasslands are very small in size, so actually of 1 hectare, so you have to move all the time the animals, which again gives these higher labor costs to take care of them. And it's also prohibited to graze the semi-natural grassland together with another cultivated field if you have a field next to it. So you cannot have a fence around both the semi-natural grassland and the field. It must be separated. And again, then you get this extra labor cost for moving the animals. And people always think it's too much bureaucracy related to the support. Nowadays, it's pretty easy to apply for this kind of support. You just have to, to mark it in your electronic support system. But the areas, they need also a management plan on how you're going to take care of them. So Metsähallitus is also have some, and ELY centers have some small funds for maintenance of traditional landscapes. And Metsähallitus have recently focused on mapping semi-natural landscapes and culture in forests more. So cultural related things. And some areas are of course managed by volunteers. And then we have the leader funding that also can be used for managing traditional landscapes. But nowadays the village associations focus more on combating dangerous alien species, so such as lupine and also Impatiens glandulifera. The Finnish national parks are managed by Metsähallitus, and there are also some traditional semi-natural grasslands in those. The amount of hectares, I have been finding different numbers. One says 1,600 hectares, and other says that they are managing actually 3,500 to 4,000 hectares of these. That is actually about 10% of all the managed traditional landscapes in the whole country. Most of them are in Archipelago National Park, 700 hectares, but then there are many of the other national parks, they have also more than 100 hectares of these semi-natural grasslands. The most important areas are these northern riverside meadows and floodplains meadows and slash and burn forests in eastern Finland, and then the open wooden meadows of the Archipelago Sea, and there are also species-rich meadows and forest meadows in southern Finland. Metsähallitus has drawn up management plans for these areas, and the Ministry of Environment are guiding them on how to manage them, and they manage according to this plan. And if the area requires grazing, then they are renting out these areas as pastures, and more than 3,000 hectares are managed by farmers that are renting the areas. The farmer doesn't have to pay a rent, but they are paying a rental fee, 60 euros, it's very cheap, and then they can also apply for the agricultural environmental support to manage these areas. And they usually are rented for 5 years, but they can also be rented for a shorter or longer period. And the fencing of the area has to be taken care of by the farmer who is renting the area. And the Metsähallitus have also some areas that are only moved. And usually it's then workers or labor camps that move them, or they make cooperation together with Wildlife Foundation or nature conservation organizations, or other voluntaries, or for example educational organizations to manage the areas. And some of the semi-natural areas are in protected areas, as we said, and here you can see a list of them, and also on the map where they are located. Centers are managing the regions, and Metsähallitus manage these landscapes of national parks. That's the work division. And in 1990s already, only a part of these areas were managed as they should have been managed. There was a problem that the semi-natural landscapes were not fenced, and nutrients were transferred from adjacent fields into these traditional landscapes. And more resources is also needed for monitoring these areas. It is needed for advice and training those who should manage the area. And it also should be more farmers who participate in taking care of these areas. So even if the regional management planning programs and they have evaluated this general situation, then still there is a lack of information. We really miss data on this. And there are also not any regional goals for how many hectares should be managed. Since the big inventories in 1990s, then there has been a lot of structural changes in administration. They removed the regional environmental centers and they constructed these ELU centers, and this has also worsened the management of these traditional landscapes. Some improvements with these large national projects has been seen recently with this Häme project. But still, the biggest threat is that the number of farms is decreasing all the time. So we went from 100,000 farms in 95, then in 2015 it was 51,000 farms, and now in 2023 there is 42,000 farms, and the number of farms is still decreasing. With less people in rural areas, we have less people taking care of something like semi-natural grasslands. And also half of the farms had domestic animals, but today it's only 1/3 of the farms. And rocky areas, they do not have their own protection program. And agriculture is more focusing on climate change, energy and nutrient efficiency. And climate change, it threatens these coastal meadows the most. It's overgrowing and there is a rise of sea levels. And there has been made a new inventory of the threat of these habitat types from in 2016 to 2018, and new inventories then started, yes, regionally in some parts. But there is no national biotope biodiversity monitoring program in Finland for these semi-natural grasslands. Things have then been very good, and a project established something called a pasture bank. It combines pastures and animal services related to grazing. So if you have a pasture that not is used, you could report it to this pasture bank. Or if you have grazing animals and you don't have a place for them to graze, then you could also inform here. And in this way they find each other. Time been some nice initiatives. For example, the Finnish Nature Conservation Union and the state railways, they carried out a 3-year cooperational project where it was named On the Journey to the Landscape Naturally, and during this they maintained these valuable landscapes and biotopes, more than 70 of them in different places then in connection with the railroad. And in this project, actually, as many areas were managed as the environmental sector managers. The environmental support these programs manage Finland annually. And also, they took also actually care of such areas that would not be able to get agriculture support at that time.